You think it was a coincidence that right on cue, as soon as Midas Touch Network and my podcast partner, Ben Meiselas, got the get of a lifetime to do the final President Joe Biden interview, that all of the bad bashing of Joe Biden's stories came out in the Wall Street Journal and with Chris Cillizza? Mainstream media has it out for independent journalism, commentary, and analysis you could only find on Legal AF and the Midas Touch Network. And I'm going to prove it to you during this hot take. I'm Michael Popok. You're already here on the Legal AF YouTube channel. Take a minute, hit the free subscribe button, help us get to 500,000 in the first part of the new year. Now more than ever, we need your support. Okay, we're all excited, understandably, on the Midas Touch Network because one of our founders and fearless leaders, in Ben Meiselas, gets the get of a lifetime. He gets to interview the last interview for President Joe Biden. Mainstream media didn't get in there. It wasn't on NBC, MSNBC, Fox News, Newsmax, you name it. Or Joe Rogan. It was with Ben Meiselas and the Midas Touch Network. And then like a day later, I start seeing stories against Joe Biden, as if now is the time to try to undercut the reporting and the exclusivity of what the Midas Touch Network was able to accomplish. Who are these upstarts? Who is this garage band of a network? Let's crush them. Let's undermine their reporting. And so right on cue, the Wall Street Journal, owned by Rupert Murdoch, releases something that was just filled with like old news. Like the subheadline should have been, Joe Biden was given naps by his staff 4 years ago. I'm like, I'm sorry. Is it really news today? Or only because Midas touched in an interview? Is it really news today that an aging president, watching a president age in place, where that in place happens to be the White House, that his staff was managing his energy levels, was managing his focus as he aged in the White House? What did they think happened with Ronald Reagan? He was heading for Alzheimer's. Read the books of the Reagan era. Nancy Reagan was running the White House, was running the presidency with the help of an astrologist. Okay? So the fact that they were with staff, they were being respectful of the fact that he wasn't 50 years old or even 70 years old, in planning his schedule, in making sure that things didn't go too long, recognizing that as you get older, and this is the reality, we all have parents, we all have aging parents, we're all aging. We have something in common on this hot take. Everybody right now is 1 second older than they were when I started talking. All right, so what I called for, at least, I don't know if I did a hot take on it, but certainly privately, what I called for was that they bring in gerontologists. They bring in geriatric medicine people. They bring in geriatric, therapists who can help design a White House for a president who was older. I'm not talking about, shower railings. I'm talking about making sure that staff around him, who are all younger than him, recognized what he, through his body, through his eyes, through his gait, through his walking, how he experienced the world, from a psychological, emotional, mental standing. They used to do studies like that where they would take young people and they would put them in, a weighted suit that made their gait and their walk off, put yellowing goggles on them, a little bit, with showing a little bit of distortion in vision, to show what it's like to be in your 80s, even if you're a super ager, like I believe Joe Biden is. And so all these stories, so I wanted that. I wanted to acknowledge an aging president and not run from it, not hide from it. But the White House, there's a history about hiding from illness and disability and from things. They hid the crutches, or they hid the wheelchair for FDR. The guy was in a wheelchair his entire life. Most of the public, until the very end, until like his start of his fourth term, didn't know he was in a wheelchair, because he would always put on because of polio, he'd always put on these crutches, and they would bring him up to the podium and shove him up and then tie him to the podium. And then when the speech was over, they always made sure everybody left before he got out. So they never saw him in that wheelchair, John F. Kennedy, debilitating Addison's disease, requiring all sorts of medications and steroids, which distorted his thinking, his appearance, and different things. But they hid it. They used to, there was a rumor from books I read. There was medication for Addison's disease that was in safety deposit boxes all over the world in case he had an episode. Rather than hide it, we should have acknowledged the obvious and let him have, people around him that knew a lot about aging. But no, we have to hide it. Everybody has to hide it. So now the big story, it has to come out the day Midas does its speech, the interview, is they didn't, there were a lot of people around him, then they tried to manage his day. Okay. I think it'd be professional malpractice if they didn't do that. And then right on cue, mainstream media, Chris Cillizza, who I used to like, by the way. Chris Cillizza comes out with, this is literally his thing. I have a confession to make. Okay, Chris, what is it? This is like 24 hours after the Midas interview. I didn't press harder on staff because I couldn't believe that, there was some dementia or other issues that were going on with him. And I should have been harder as a reporter. I mean, look, we just did an interview with him, let's just say it out loud. There's no signs of dementia. He's just an older president. That's all. And older people have good days and bad days. I mean, I'm 59. I got good days and bad days. I mean, nothing that a cup of coffee or a pot of bourbon couldn't help, but, in general. So I just find it fascinating that the media has to wake up to the Midas Touch exclusive. And the first thought is, hey, run that story. It's been sitting in the can for 3 years about they used to help Joe Biden with his day. Really? That's what you needed to do to steal our news cycle from us? Or Chris Cillizza, I have a confession to make. I got a confession to make too. Corporate media sucks. Corporate mainstream, that's the only time I agree with MAGA. Corporate mainstream media, controlled by oligarchs, controlled by public companies worried about their bottom line and not about the First Amendment, or freedom of the press can't be trusted. I'm sorry. There's no other way to put it. I know there's people out there trying to bash, because, once you got big, like us, we got big. We went from 400 people hanging around our network 4.5 years ago to 3.5 million. And when you get bigger, you get a target on your back. I understand it. Not everybody likes what we do. Not everybody likes who we are. But, they're all trying to punch up in order to gain some sort of clout for themselves, right? So now it's become a new parlor game. Bash Midas. Oh, what is Midas hiding from you today? What is Midas hiding from you today? What is Michael Popok hiding from you? You think I get up in the morning thinking, what should I hide? I give you my honest opinion. It may not agree with other commentators and talking heads out there on YouTube. I hope I don't often agree with them. I have my own independent analysis, my own executive function, my own life experience, my own legal training, my own, nobody walked in my shoes but me. And so if I'm not jumping on a bandwagon of some conspiracy theory, it's because it doesn't make any sense, because it's not rational, because I'm not trying to sell something or get ratings in order to bring up something that's controversial and just feed bread and circus to the masses to make them feel good, right? I'm not here to make people feel good. I mean, I'm trying to be entertaining. Let's be frank. But I'm not just going to say, what can I say today, get the maximum ratings? Look, I could calculate something. You could probably imagine what it would be and who would be on the cover of every thumbnail that we did in the next month or two if I really wanted ratings, if that's what it was all about. It would just be 24/7 of the most notorious case in the paper right now. That's all I would do. I would just make it an entire channel devoted to that. But I'm not doing that. And we're not doing that here on the Midas Touch Network or on Legal AF, and I think that's why you're here. But I wanted to call it out. I was getting pissed. I was doing everything internally with our guys and our people, and I was like, this is pissing me off. And then I thought, when I get pissed off, a hot take is probably the next best thing I should do. So I'm here. I'm Michael Popok. Many, many ways to support Legal AF. First, it's free. Hit the subscribe button. I got a show called Popok Live. It's sort of like this. Every Tuesday night, we skipped one last week because of the White House event. But Tuesday night live with Popok. I got a new show I'm doing with Anthony Davis, formerly of the BBC and a frequent Midas Touch contributor with his own couple of shows. We're going to do Global AF. You knew it. You wanted it. You demanded it. Where he and I, from an American perspective, a British perspective, European perspective, are going to do the global reaction, overreaction, reaction, to the Donald Trump incoming administration. And we're getting a taste of it now. The instability in Canada, the instability in Germany, the instability in France, all linked to Donald Trump. We'll talk about these things and what our allies and then, what our enemies are going to do to reorient their policies. Yes, our enemies have policies towards the Trump administration. We'll do it on Global AF. Look on the Midas Touch Network for the announcement of the time and date for that podcast and that live YouTube. So until my next hot take, I'm Michael Popok reporting. In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories, the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.